really into, all the extreme metal scenes, black metal and death metal, and, I talked to Cannibal Corpse, and it sort of evolved out of that. And so I think that I've had a really, really good experience writing about metal and meeting all these great musicians. And it's an honor to be part of that, to be accepted by the metal community, because I think, once you're in, it's like, you're solid, you're good. One of my the highlights, I guess, of my career was the last article I did was for Metal Maniacs after Metal Maniacs ceased to exist in its print form and went online, and sort of became a tribute page to the print magazine, which many people still remember as being like one of the greatest metal magazines ever in history. Over the last 50 years, however long metal has been on, and I talked to Lemmy from Motorhead the third time. I talked to him before for Metal Hammer, and so I was asking him some questions about like his philosophy of education, and I mentioned that I taught English, and he's like, "Oh yes, I teach," So he sort of dubbed me Teach. At that point, I'm like, I have been touched by God. So that was like one of the highlights. Lemmy gave me a nickname. I can die now.
Well, were there any bands that you got to meet that intimidated you? Are you willing to admit if they did, or?
Oh, that's a great question. No, all this, like, I don't know if I should be saying this, but all the bands, if you're not in the metal scene and you just see these grimacing faces, you think, God, these must be intense, tough, characters, and they're gonna, punch you or something, or, it's gonna be a fistful of steel. They're softies. I mean, it's performance, it's theater. I've met, Danny Filth. I've met Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden. I've met, pretty much everybody, and they're cool. They're professionals. Their job is to be scary, but they aren't scary people. So I'm trying to think if anybody's actually like intimidated me. Well, I was setting up the interview with Iron Maiden. I was talking to the label publicist, and he said, "Okay, well, Bruce says you should just call him at his hotel in Santa Monica." And I was like, "I'm not worthy." And this guy said, "Get a grip, you're a professional." I'm like, it's a joke, right? I'm not worthy. I mean, I was like thrilled to meet Bruce Dickinson and Adrian Smith from Iron Maiden. I mean, this is like, from your teenage metalhead, these are, the icons of your life. So,
oh yeah,
it's been more exhilarating than anything else. I wouldn't say I've ever been truly intimidated, but there have been some really grouchy, surly people. But I'd say that it's like 0.001% of all the hundreds of interviews I've done. There's so many really, really great, professional musicians and like really, really awesome people. Ronnie James Dio, Lemmy, King Diamond. I mean, these are, some of the best encounters with anybody that I've had in my life. So I really feel, honored to be part of that, scene.
Okay. You said surlies, that you had dealt with some surly ones. I was wondering, would either of them have been from would it have been Gull from Gorgoroth, or the guy, one of the guys from Mayhem, because they have reputations that precede them?
I talked to one of the guys from Gorgoroth. He was intense, but it was more surreal than anything else. I mean, some of his answers were like, in Latin, and it was like, to breathe is to die, and I'm like, okay.
Wow.
It seems more sort of, sorry, but pretentious and silly to me than anything else. But I think the worst interview I've ever had was Boyd Rice. Actually, I had 2 interviews with him. The second one was disastrous. So I don't think I'll be doing that again.
Lloyd Bright?
Boyd Rice. Boyd Rice.
Okay.
Do you know who he is?
I should, but I probably should, but I don't.
Well, he's a guy who's sort of like an industrial. He sort of came into doing industrial music by accident, and he's well known as a sort of a manipulator of mental propaganda. I don't know, cultural propaganda themes and memes, and he's associated with Anton LaVey and Charles Manson, all of which he sort of repudiates now and says, I'm not part of that anymore. So he's, there was a documentary that came out about him a couple of years ago. So he's done a lot. I mean, if you Google him, he's pretty important in terms of like avant-garde, industrial, progressive, whatever. But he's kind of a fascist, and I mean that literally.
Well, speaking of heavy metal, though, you have an anthology open submissions right now.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Okay. Well, the anthology is called Axes of Evil, which is, I wish I could coin that term, but it actually comes from a song by the band 3 Inches of Blood. And it is, I've been actually trying to formulate a way to describe what the anthology is all about. It is a collection of horror stories that are set in or inspired by or some way related to the heavy metal milieu. So I think that people who are, like horror, adore horror, like metal, are really into it, will automatically understand. And I've had some, a number of great submissions. Garrett Cook just sent me something. It's not called Sister Merciless, but it's one of his 2 Sister Merciless stories. So I'm very proud to be able to publish that. And the metal thing is all about being over the top, being sort of martial, being hyperbolic and extreme, and there's the force and the energy. So I think of like the best example I could give would be the song "Evil Dead" by Death, which was obviously based on the Sam Raimi film, and so there's a natural alliance between the kind of over the top, almost like splatter punk meets Monty Python, excess of like the Evil Dead movies and death metal. It's all about extremes. I think people who are into those genres get it, and the rest, I'm having a difficult time describing what I'm after. It's like you have to be there almost.
Well, there's a catharsis involved in heavy metal, but not a lot of other musical, genres can offer. Rock and roll and heavy metal, they kind of share, fans to a point. But there's a lot of catharsis there that you won't find in, say, I don't know, Zydeco or.
Well, you'd be surprised.
Oh yeah.
Well, some extreme Zydeco performances that just knocked me out and left me sprawling and dazed.
Yeah, that's amazing. If I'd have said that to anyone else, they would have just said yes or laughed. But you come back with that. It shows how knowledgeable you are about music.
Thank you. Yeah. I do appreciate the Zydeco. That's a kind of it's sort of like skiffle meets the blues, right? It's like that.
I don't know. That's why we got you on to tell us.
The washboard. They've got the washboard. That's all I know about Zydeco. Yeah.
Now, what about the other anthology, Bumpkin Noses and Cherry Pie?
Yes.
And that's a new genre emerging there.
Yes. Circus punk is a new genre invented by my partner, Shari Lamar, and it is amazing. She's put together this collection of stories. It's about 88,000 words now, which she did in a record time. I think it's like 2 weeks. She put together the entire thing. I mean, I'm in awe of her prolific ways. And circus punk is, I think, everything you like about Bizarro, about cyberpunk, about all the punks, really. That sense of excess, that sense of you're going to get something like a Looney Tunes, cartoon on speed, mixed with something extra. That but circus punk, as the name might indicate, does take place within the realm of the circus. And Shari is actually a former professional clown, aka Cotton Candy. So she really knows her stuff.
And I know she'll be listening to this.
Yeah. And right, go ahead.
Well, so I mean, yeah, you got to choose your words carefully, right?
Right, exactly.
So that's going to be put out for Schwibbly. That and Axis of Evil, the heavy metal anthology, will both be out for Schwibbly Press.
Right, the Schwibbly, and I think Bumping Noses will be first in line. Start to look for it in about a month, and then the heavy metal horror anthology Axis of Evil will come swiftly upon thereupon, and after I think Sherry's going to open up a circus punk anthology. So if you have any listeners out there who want to write something with a carnival theme or about clowns or acrobats or anything that happens under the big top, preferably with lots of sex and violence and goo, that's what we're looking for. So bring it on. Just be thinking about that.
I'll bet Douglas Hackle, a regular Surreal Grotesque contributor, could give you a new terror clown story.
Oh, yeah.
Are you familiar?
I know Douglas. I'm not familiar with that character.
Well, in the story, which is featured in our anthology, it features Bradley, the writer Bradley Sands, as the main character, and his final words to Terror Clown before he kills him, I think, are, "Please don't kill me in the face."
That's God. I love that.
Yeah. Now, what is your goal with Schwibbly Press? You have quite a bit of projects lined up. Is Matador Mirrors going to be through that as well?
No, that's actually through Rosemary Tundra Bensko, who is a writer, a prolific writer and also somebody who invented her own genre as well, called lucid fiction. She has a small press in Berkeley, California, called Lucid Play Publishing. So that will be out from Lucid Play.
As far as your goals for Schwibbly,
my goals for Schwibbly, well, I first want to see what happens with the anthologies. The only thing that's actually appeared from the Schwibbly Press was